Open your little mouth now. Grandma Rivera gripped the back of my neck with her left hand and palmed the bar of soap deeper into my mouth with her right. I struggled as little as possible. Struggling only made it worse. I hardly even winced when the soap cracked 2 baby teeth from my gums. You defend that weird man. You must be a little weirdo yourself. You'll be clean, boy. I'll make sure of it. She mixed a cup of bleach into the near-boiling water of the bathtub. What did he do to you, boy? Huh? The steel wool tore flecks of skin off my back as she cleaned. A single tear fell from my right eye. The eye that was facing away from her, thankfully. Crying only made it worse. Word had gotten out that my 3rd grade teacher had a boyfriend. Grandma Rivera was upset by this because my 3rd grade teacher was a man. She ranted on for hours, quoting Bible verses, praying the rosary, lighting candles. When she had finally paused for a breath, I asked, "But Grandma Rivera, what if God made him that way? Wouldn't God still love him?" That question landed me in a bleach-filled bathtub with a bar of soap between my teeth. But that was Grandma Rivera for you. By the time I was 13, I developed a routine to stay under her radar. Every day was the same. Wake up at 5, chores until the bus came at 7, home from school at 3, chores until dinner at 5, prayers until bedtime at 7, all the while following her insane list of rules. I was hitchhiking my way out of the state by the time the clock struck midnight on my 18th birthday. Days turned into months, then turned into years. Before I knew it, I was 30 years old and still couch surfing. I had never finished high school since I left in such a rush, so my job prospects had always been limited. But still, it was better to depend on food stamps and my friends' couches than to live under Grandma Rivera's roof. Or so I thought. A week ago, an Ivy League-looking man showed up at the car wash that I worked at. "Hello, sir." His voice sounded like an American imitation of a British accent. "I'm looking for Julio Rivera." "Rodriguez," I responded. "Excuse me? I don't go by Rivera anymore. It's Rodriguez." "Oh, delightful." He cheered while extending his hand. "Jameson. Thaddeus Jameson. That's Esquire, of course. But my friends just call me Thaddy." "Oh, well, I think I'd rather not." "Oh, but of course, he said. "Well, we're just getting to know each other, aren't we, Mr. Rivera?" "Look, man, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but is there something you want? I just got this job and I can't afford to get fired." "Oh, I only want to tell you the news, sir." "Two newses, that is. One good, one bad, I suppose. Which would you like to hear first?" My right eye began to twitch as I looked down at him, debating whether or not cussing him out was worth losing my job. "Well, I'll just get on with it then," he said. "I've arranged for a plane and a car ride to take you to your grandmother's home in Colorado." My knees buckled. The faint scent of bleach tickled my nostrils. "No," I stepped back. "No, you can't make me. She can't make me. I won't." "Well, of course she can't make you, sir. She's dead." The house was still in pristine condition. It was the one-bedroom, one-bathroom rancher with a broken-down 1996 Toyota Corolla under the carport. I suppose that was mine now too. My hand was riddled with tremors as I slid the key into the lock. I half expected this to be a ruse, that Grandma Rivera would be waiting just behind the door with an electrical cord in hand, ready to switch my sins away. Click. The door unlocked. The door squealed as it swung open. "Hello?" I called out. "Grandma Rivera, it's Julio, I'm here." Nothing. I stepped inside and I smiled. "I'm here, you old hag, and you're not." I skipped through the house with my dirty sneakers on, breaking one of her rules. "I'm here and you're dead. I'm here and you're in hell." For the first time since I can remember, I felt relief. As I celebrated, I came across the gigantic chalkboard in Grandma Rivera's kitchen. The behemoth was at least 6 feet tall and almost as wide, filled to the brim with rules. Hardly a speck of green background was left. I intended to break every one of them. The first few dozen rules were easy to break. 1. No swearing. 2. No television after dinner. 3. No dinner after sunset. 4. No self-pleasure. I broke that rule less than an hour after arriving. Hell, it was the first time I'd had privacy in years. Later, I sat on the plastic-covered couch, turned on RuPaul's Drag Race, and ate a microwavable pot pie at 10 p.m. before falling into a deep slumber. The piercing ring of the house phone yanked me from sleep. God, I had forgotten how awful that thing sounded. The sun pierced my eyes as I stumbled my way into the kitchen and lifted the receiver. "Hello?" I grumbled. "Mr. Rivera, it's Thaddy. How's the house treating ya?" He exclaimed in a tone much too chipper for the hour. "Jesus, Thaddeus. It's gotta be 6 in the morning. And I told you already, it's Rodriguez." It's early noon, sir," he responded. "I was just calling to ensure you'd read over all the paperwork." "Paperwork? What paperwork?" "The paperwork regarding the transfer of the estate, sir. The paperwork regarding your grandmother's requirements." "What do you mean, requirements? You said this place was mine, that I was her only living heir." "Well, yes, sir. However, she placed certain provisions in her will. You must follow them for some time. Otherwise, the estate will be transferred over to the firm." "The firm? I guess that means you." "Why, yes, Mr. Rivera." I could almost hear the sniffling little smirk. "Yes, it does." I knew Thaddeus was probably having the house watched, waiting for me to mess up so he could take it from me. I didn't care. I had lived my life in a constant state of paranoia, afraid that Grandma Rivera would find and punish me. I had flashbacks of her abuse almost daily. I wet the bed until I was 23. That problem was particularly embarrassing because every bed I had slept on was someone else's. No one was taking this victory away from me. No one. I made my way back to the chalkboard. I was taken aback by the next rule on the list. 27. The garden gnome must face west in the daytime and south in the nighttime. I didn't remember this rule. What garden gnome? The caricature of a Mexican rancher she kept in the backyard. I stomped toward the back door, fingernails digging into my palms. I made my way to the so-called garden gnome, grabbed by the porcelain sombrero, and smashed it against the side of the house. I went back inside and I broke rule number 4 a few more times. By the time night came, I was laying on the couch with my feet on the armrest, one hand in a bowl of popcorn, the other gripping a lukewarm beer. I was 15 minutes into an episode of Queer Eye when I heard it. Grandma Rivera's old record player. It was the same song she listened to every night before bed. Mr. Sandman by the Chordettes, the only record she had ever owned. The bowl of popcorn fell to the floor at the same time the beer spilled into my lap. I didn't react to either. I lay frozen like a deer in headlights, my heart beating so heavily it vibrated my shirt. I'm not sure what time the music stopped, but it must have. I was torn awake once more by the shrieking of Grandma Rivera's old rotary phone. I fell off the couch, the last remnants of Bud Light falling out of the bottle along with me. I clambered into the kitchen and lifted the receiver. "What?" I shouted. "Ah, Mr. Rivera, it's Thaddy. A late start again today, huh?" He chuckled. "Still following the rules to the letter, I presume." "Screw off, Thaddeus." I slammed the receiver back down and tore the cord out of the wall. I grabbed another Bud out of the fridge, the breakfast of champions. I wasn't sure how long I would have the house before Thaddeus took it, so I had to get to work. I started picking rules at random. Number 57, no leftovers. All unfinished meals must be thrown outside in the garbage. I threw the refrigerator door open, pulled out these 6 chicken tenders I had left over from the night before, and shoved them into my mouth cold. I spent the rest of the day casually swiping through a dating app. Rule 4 wasn't entirely cutting it anymore. I fell asleep on the couch without receiving a single response. Typical. I was pulled from my slumber by the violent shattering of glass. I climbed out of the couch and collapsed onto the floor, the room spinning around me like an alcoholic during happy hour. Mr. Sandman was once again blaring from Grandma Rivera's bedroom. I took a deep breath and pushed myself into a standing position. "Why won't you just leave me alone?" I screamed. I ran down the hall toward the only bedroom and kicked in the door. There were broken shards of glass on the carpet and pieces of porcelain, the last remnants of the garden gnome that had been thrown through the window. "Is this what you want, huh? This stupid song, this stupid gnome?" I yanked the record player from the bedside table and slammed it into the ground. "Well, what about what I wanted?" I gripped a shard of porcelain, bloody in my hand, and began to carve away at Grandma Rivera's mattress. "I wanted to call you Grammy. I wanted to bake cookies with you. I wanted to be loved." I collapsed onto the red-stained shreds of cotton and cloth below me and cried myself into a headache. The doorbell woke me this time. Through the peephole, I could see a puny figure in a size too large suit. Ugh. I only opened the door as far as the chain lock would allow. "What do you want, Thaddeus?" I groaned. "Well, good morning, Mr. Rivera. Well, afternoon, I suppose, if you want to be technical. I tried to reach you by phone, but the call failed. Please, just leave me alone already." "Is everything all right, Mr. Rivera? I noticed a broken window when I pulled in. You are aware that one of the conditions of transfer is keeping the house in the condition that you received it, yes?" I almost hit him on the nose with the door when I slammed it shut. I strolled into the kitchen, eager to begin my new daily routine. 66. Never throw away what can be donated to charity. Huh. That kind of interferes with Rule 57, doesn't it? It took the junk collector 3 hours to show up after I had called. The bed, the record player, all of her clothes, blankets, and trinkets. I told them to take it all to the dump and to piss on them. The only thing I kept was the couch. I junked its plastic cover. I made a quick trip to the local market downtown and bought a bundle of sage. I didn't know much about vengeful spirits or ghosts, but I had heard that sage could ward them off. Night came quickly, but sleep did not. I laid motionless on the couch for hours. It was easy to be brave in the safety of daylight. Still, under the cloak of darkness, I began to regret breaking another rule and angering Grandma Rivera's spirit. It must have been past 2 in the morning when I had heard it. The faint sound of footsteps scuttling around in Grandma Rivera's room. It sounded like she was looking for something. Her record player, most likely. I climbed out of bed in a slow, deliberate manner. I tiptoed my way down the hall, careful not to step on any of the floor's creaky spots. When I finally reached the front of the partially kicked-in bedroom door, I lit the sage. My hands weren't trembling anymore. It was time to finish this. I threw the door open and held the sage out in front of me like a priest warding off a demon. The power of I froze. My intestines sank as I saw a dark figure huddled in the corner of the closet. My hands began to tremble once more, and then the blood boiled throughout my veins. You! I threw the sage to the side and stepped forward. Please! A voice squeaked in a fake British accent. Don't hurt me, Mr. Rodriguez. I was just trying to scare you away so I could take the property. I wasn't going to cause you any harm. I swear it. I should have known. I should have learned the lessons my childhood taught me. There are no vengeful spirits. There are no ghosts. The real monsters are people. People like Grandma Rivera. Like Thaddeus Jameson. The real monsters are the ones who look us in the face every day. If you'll excuse me, I have to teach Thaddy what happens when you break the rules.